Hey, what's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Welcome to this week's Chillporeal, and I am lucky. I am beyond grateful and lucky to get Magitech Mags here talking with me. How are you?
I'm good. Nerdporeal. I mean, we're friends. Of course, when you were like, we should do this, a hangout, and I know we've tried to coordinate it, and I'm glad it worked out today. So there you go.
So I have to ask, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking bullet bourbon tonight, and of course, I have a brand new camera for this good occasion, so people can actually see things close up very clearly. So there's the bottle, bullet bourbon. It's a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey and distilled and aged in the Bullet family tradition. So it's a really good house bourbon. I like it. You can also have it on the rocks. Clink, clink,
That's
clink, clink, clink.
that's my plan too. I got the ice in there; it's already melting. So
I know, I know it's so warm out. So
I am continuing my voyage with Jefferson's Ocean, and
okay.
let's hear the cork. Here we go. So here
Oh,
we go.
nice. That's a nice sound. That's always such a nice sound.
And hopefully, we will not have a drunk Poriel sighting because that is a purely a myth that doesn't exist.
Hey, hey. Hey,
Cheers.
cheers.
Ooh,
Mm,
always good.
nice and chilled too.
Oh, so how are things been?
They've been great. Of course I had a hiatus for a little bit. I always what is it? I had a conversation with somebody the other day on this very topic. Actually, it was a recording with a punk waddle, so make sure you keep an eye on that recording, on the interview. But I know a lot of times YouTube tends to punish YouTubers or their creators for not um, feeding their algorithmic monster. But I'm of the opinion that I think YouTubers and creators need to take an occasional break. Um, Not necessarily to just touch grass, but more like spend time with your family, spend time with friends, travel like what you did, Nerdporeal. And it's good to do that because it also.
We actually met. I met
I know
Mags,
we were able to meet.
Mags, and Prophet of the Dragon. The three of us got together. We what did we do, Mags? What we went to you, an
Yes.
undisclosed place, and what did we do?
Well, we played mini. Well, we went to a better restaurant than the one that y'all went to, apparently.
The one by Steve was, I think it was Middle Eastern. I don't know if it was Lebanese or I don't know what it was, but
You're
it was
like,
it was it was awful. Like the moment we saw someone go in, they looked at the menu, they freaking left.
oh
And
no.
I ordered peppered steak. So here's like they put out a tray of food. It was like an inch a line of peppered steak, several inches of lettuce, and several inches of I don't know if it was noodles or something, but it was
Right.
just they I got shafted on the meat, on the steak. So I was like, we're not. I was like, did you like this, Steve? He's like, no, we're not coming. We'll never come here again. So we didn't even know what the place was. We just saw it and we just walked in. We just walked in and we're like, oh, maybe this is a normal place.
Like, not really.
No.
But yeah, so I'm of the opinion of doing stuff like that. I know there's been several meetups that we've probably seen advertised on our in our Twitter spheres and everything else. And I think that's a good way to not just it reinvigorates you. And I think people, I know there's a mix of introverts and extroverts in our groups, but I think there's something to be said about when you see people in front of you rather than through a screen. It reinvigorates your creative spirit, your creative mind. It gives you something to fight for as far as your passion too, because it's just something to do with that. There's that energy. There's that good energy and that good vibe that it seems to be passed around amongst everybody, and that seems to be able to get the creative juices flowing, especially if you're struggling. So
Yeah.
it's a good positive experience, and that was really fun overall. I know that I had a great time with that, meeting you and Prophet of the Dragon. um but then it's been crazy. I've been into the beach house, and our puppy, our 5-month-old puppy, swam for the first time. So it was great to see.
Oh, uh, you said 5 month. What kind of puppy again?
Chocolate lab.
Chocolate lab. Oh my, nice. Oh, that's cute. Yeah, you have to send me a picture.
Okay, I will. Yeah, he's grown. He has. Oof, gosh, he is grown. He is
When
he's
did they
about
when did they mature? Like a year old or something? 2 years?
18 months, so about 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's when they're fully grown. But typically a Labrador is he really matured? He's
Dogs
always
are dogs are kids forever.
yeah, exactly.
Like you have an older dog, and the families, the mom and dad, or the owners still yell at the dog like it's a kid. So but I have to say hello to everyone in the chat. So
Oh
wow,
yeah.
Mags, you are popular. You are popular. So yeah, your Barmy is here. Oh, we
Hey.
got we have the High King himself, Feanor, the Alpha Chat of Middle Earth. Yeah,
Hi.
definitely follow High King Feanor. He is
He's trying to get a new video out. Yeah, his first video. So
his first video. Well, definitely subscribe. I think I'm subscribed to him, even though he doesn't have an. I think definitely subscribe to him. So
yep.
definitely want to collab at some point. But yeah, thanks for being here. Words of Paradise says, "Yo, Meg's in the house." Okay, that's not that's the city guy in
You need
me
to say it
translating that.
you need to say it with some gusto. He says, "Yo, Mag's in the house." He does it
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. I've been watching The Wire. True dat. True dat. So all right, we have Brandon, the anime guy. What's up, Brandon?
Hi,
Says
Brandon.
Cam looks good. We got
Mhm.
Mr. Zip. He says, you're in the wrong place when you have to ask for the menu in English. It's true.
Yeah.
And then we got Jock Nerdy. If you haven't seen, he just had a child. So
Yeah,
definitely
congratulations.
congratulations. And may that son or may that child be a masculine child. So there we go.
Name.
And of course, Salty's here. What's up, Salty? And looks
Hey,
like
Salty.
he sponsored a member to the membership to Easton, of all people. If you don't know what Easton is, that's Prophet's son. Well, yeah, we're going to be probably playing some Mario now that he's back. We're going to be we're probably going to be playing some more Mario 3D World together. So
okay, awesome. Sounds great.
So yeah. So Mags, I gotta ask you.
Okay.
Obviously, Final Fantasy VI is your wheelhouse.
Oh yeah.
So I have to ask you, like, when did you first play it? Like, how did you get? Was that the first Final Fantasy? Have you played any of the others?
I feel like that wasn't the first one that I got introduced to. I'm trying to think as far back as I can remember. Actually, it was probably Final Fantasy 2 that I got introduced to, or maybe it was 1. There was one that had red mages in it, and I'm not sure if it was 1 or 2. That was the first one. Or where you can choose, I think you could choose your path or something like that.
Yeah, that was one.
That was the early days of Final Fantasy, where they weren't set in stone characters yet. I mean, they had their own characters, but they weren't really like.
Yeah, the first one was you play as the 4 heroes of light, and you get to choose whether your 4 heroes are knights. They could be all white mages, they could be all black mages,
or red mage, which was like
red mages,
like a switchblade, basically, kind of a character. It might have been the first one. I remember my brothers playing that one. But there was another Final Fantasy game that's not really Final Fantasy, that I remember watching my brothers play a lot. I didn't personally play it, because I don't think I was young enough to quite understand controllers quite yet, or something like that. But I can remember images of watching on the TV in their room, and it was Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. So it's not really a Final Fantasy, but it had the Final Fantasy name. So
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's very Zelda-esque in terms of the way the some of the gameplay is a little bit, but it's not Zelda, if that makes sense.
No, I mean that was probably the first Final Fantasy that I've seen too. My mother was visiting a high school friend, and her kids were roughly same age as me. They were the it was I was hanging out with her son, and he was playing, I think, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen an RPG before, and this was even before me playing Super Mario RPG, which was my first ever RPG game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what are these? I'm like, what's going on here? What's with these numbers popping out? Like, it doesn't seem like anything's moving. You're just seeing numbers popping above the sprite.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, oh wait, that's the health. And I'm like, okay. Then years later, college comes. My friend gives me his Super Nintendo emulator,
Mm-hmm.
and I started playing Final Fantasy IV. That was my first. That was my gateway into Final Fantasy. That's the one with Cecil and the Red Wings. And Cecil goes from being a Dark Knight to a Paladin, and let's just say Darth Vader's the villain, also known as Golbez.
And Golbez.
There's an emperor. There's an evil emperor-like character that is manipulating Golbez. It's very Star Wars, and there's even someone's a family member. I won't say who, but there's somebody's a family member of one of the main characters. So
yep, it's I think in many ways, I think Final Fantasy IV. And when I look back in that particular set, I would call it that pixel era of Final Fantasy 1 through 6, I feel that in many ways Final Fantasy IV really kind of put Final Fantasy on the map in terms of it really started to have more set characters rather than just have, you get to choose because the first one's kind of very in a way, not necessarily D&D, but you get to choose your character's skill and talent path or whatever you want to call it. Whereas in Final Fantasy IV, they're all set. You have a bard, you have a knight turned paladin like Cecil, you had a dragoon, you have a white mage, you have a summoner who's kind of a black mage too. You have all of these different characters and these different sets who have different backgrounds and different development over time. And I feel that Final Fantasy IV definitely really made it into, or solidified it into, more of a story. All the other games had a story, but of course, with each game that they made, because if you even play one of them, if you go back like the first one, it might seem a little dull because to those of us who actually, not I wouldn't say actually appreciate, but who appreciate the older games, yeah, it might be a little dull, kind of silly a little bit, but at the same time, we still enjoy it. But if you try to introduce like the first game to somebody who has never played Final Fantasy or has never grown up with it, so to speak, and seen that progression over time, and see the development, then it's going to be a little bit harder to say, hey, start off with Final Fantasy 1, because I've actually had people ask me, okay, so I want to get into Final Fantasy. Which one should I start first? And I never, even though Final Fantasy 6 is my favorite one, I never tell them to start off with that one, because I want them to start off with something that has, I wouldn't say it's an easy mode, but I wouldn't say it's a hard mode either. It's more of a middle ground of character, of good characters, of good story, it's got all the kind of good, juicy type RPG elements to it, but with a good overall story. And I always tell people Final Fantasy IV would be a good gateway into the series to kind of get you into that feel. And if you really, really like Final Fantasy IV and you like that pixel era stuff, then maybe you can try some of the even earlier games. I warn them that it's like, it might be a little cheesy in some aspects or whatever, or it definitely dates itself in some ways, but you can at least appreciate where it came from when it went from Final Fantasy 1 to Final Fantasy 4. And then from there, I tell them to go ahead and explore, choose your fighter, choose your Final Fantasy, and figure it out from there. But I always tell people to start off with that, because I think they need to be able to learn to appreciate the older games and why we love the older games so much. But that way you can understand where Final Fantasy came from. So you can never forget those 6. They are the ones that brought us the rest of Final Fantasy.
I totally agree. I totally agree with starting off with 4, because 4 is very character driven.
Yes.
I mean, it's so I mean the entire game is from Cecil's point of view,
Mhm.
and so like you don't really choose your team. The game kind of chooses the team for you.
Even the ending
And
team is kind of set in stone a little bit.
yeah, so there was points where I saw like the final fight with Zeromus, however
Zer-
they pronounce
I
it in
say
Japanese.
I think it's Zeramus, but I could be wrong.
Zeromus.
Zeramus, yeah.
Zeromus. So, but like the game, like basically, I mean the game's very I mean it's obviously character driven, but it's also plot driven too. So we have so when Cecil, there's a point where Cecil gets separated from everybody. They're
Right.
on the ocean, and Leviathan attacks, and the ship that they're on, they're on their way to Baron. They're trying to take back the kingdom, even though they're not powerful enough.
Right.
And it's a good thing they didn't. It's a good thing the Leviathan kind of interceded, and so Cecil winds up in Mysidia, and he ends up meeting these other characters. So he's separated from like Rydia, Tella, and I think Yang. I think Yang and Edward, separated from them, and then he's in this other continent, and he goes to the Mysidia, which is where he was in the very beginning of the game. And like in the very beginning of the game, he's a bad guy. Like he is doing the bidding of the King of Baron. The King of Baron is ordering him to do these wicked things by seizing the crystals of all the major cities on the planet.
This is when Final Fantasy still held on. I mean, they still do today, but it's not as prominent in so many ways. I think 16 kind of brought back more the crystal-esque in terms of kingdoms in that regard, because the earlier Final Fantasies before 16 before 6 especially, it was all crystal based. Like it was about fighting for crystals, or the crystals brought power. It was crystals was very much a theme in those Final Fantasies. In fact, a lot of box art, especially in North America, had the crystal on it. So of that particular game. So yeah, it's in this case, it was each kingdom had their own crystal or what have you. So yeah, and it's a great game, and for me, it's very medieval. I mean, it's kind of steampunk a little bit, but I think it's far more medieval in terms of its setting. There's romance in it. There's a chivalry in it. There's you save the princess kind of thing. So
it's a high epic fantasy.
Yes.
6, however, is more steampunk. So yeah. I guess steampunk. I mean, 6 is almost completely steampunk, but 4 and I think even 5, you had the dwarves, they had dwarves that lived underneath the earth, and
you get to visit those worlds.
They were the ones that had the engines, and especially in 4 in particular, there were 4 additional crystals in the underworld that were also being seized by Golbez and the Red Wings. So, but yeah, so yeah, definitely 4. I totally agree with you on 4. I've never played the original NES versions or Famicom versions of 1, 2, and 3. I've only played Origins. I've only played Origins for 1 and 2, the PS1 release.
Yep, I have it in my cabinet over there.
Okay, and I've only played 3, the remake, the DS remake of 3, which that one was the first game to use the job system, and then of course they used it later for 5, Final Fantasy 5,
right?
And Final Fantasy 5, I may have used their opening. I may have used the opening main theme for my Wheel of Time streams. I may or may not have done that. So it's a very epic. We're starting a new story. We're going on a journey type of deal. Right. It's going to be dangerous. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be well worth it. And that's kind of how I feel.
It's funny too. Something that you reminded me of. The reason why Final Fantasy V wasn't quite popular here yet when it was originally released is because, oh gosh, wasn't originally released here is because Japan thought Final Fantasy V was going to be too hard. So when they released 4, respectively, 4 and 6 in North America, they were actually labeled as Final Fantasy 2 and Final
Yes.
Fantasy 3 in North
Yep.
America. So for a long time, for the longest time, I always called them 2 and 3 until I think earlier days of like 2000 in early to mid 2000s, whatever, I started realizing, oh, they're not actually 2 and 3. They're actually, 4 and 6. And there's others. There's a real 2 and everything else. And I slowly had to like deprogram myself into that, because I mean, when you grow up with something like that, you still I would be on online chats, during the days of dial-up or whatever, and be like, yeah, I play Final Fantasy, 3, blah 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 blah. I'm sure other people would thought, what, who the heck? It's kind of like one of those things.
So I have to read the super chat.
I know.
Mr. Tickle Trunk doesn't want me to, but I have to read it. And I have to read it in a George Takei voice. Hello, Mr. Tickle Trunk for Canadian $2. This Final Fantasy IV talk gives me a happy. Oh my!
Oh my!
Thank you for the $2. But I didn't know that about 5. I thought it was just some stupid Enix. Even though it was Square, but I thought it was more Enix. More dumb reasons not to bring JRPGs over from.
Well, originally it was Square. It wasn't. They weren't Square Enix yet. They were Squaresoft. They were Squaresoft. They were based back in the day.
I'm curious if it's the same reason why they didn't bring 2 and 3 over from Japan either.
Probably. I don't know the full story behind that, but I remember reading in a couple places that 5 they thought was too complicated for the American or North American audience. I don't think it was American, but just North American audience. So they didn't release it in the typical order. So 4 became 2 and 6 became 3 to make more sense, because they released 1 and they didn't release 2 or 3. So then it was like, well, here's 4, but to North America it will be 2, because that would be the second Final Fantasy released here. So it's kind of, but they have it all, of course, all in order now. Everybody knows that, and we have fixed that problem. But yeah, Final Fantasy IV is a good entry into the old games. I think it helps establish the feel of Final Fantasy overall. So I give props and credit to Final Fantasy IV, even though I would say that's probably my second favorite game, Final Fantasy game. But I don't knock for anything, because even if it's a little simpler in some aspects and probably a little bit easier to get through, I don't knock it, because it's got all the good elements, and it's got high fantasy value. It's got summoning. It's got magic. It's got knights and evil and saving the girl. And
it's got touching. It's got really touching, heartfelt moments.
There's actually pretty dark moments in it. You
feel for Edward, especially when he plays his harp.
Oh gosh.
You feel for Rydia. Especially when you first meet Rydia, it's heavy shit. Like, this is not. I mean, it's
not childish at all. And Cecil dealing with his demons with all everything.
And Cecil realizes, because Cecil's question. I mean, the beginning of the game, he's doing these wicked things on behalf of a king that raised him and his friend Cain, since they were young. And all of a sudden, he's telling them he's being ordered to do all these wicked things, and he's having a moral crisis, and he's just he's not knowing what to do until he goes onto this mission, and it burns a village to the point he's like, I can't follow this king anymore. And he takes little Rydia away and tries to figure out what to do next. And and that's where I was sold right away. Like, that is insanely awesome storytelling to get the player invested. And that's what I think is missing from most entertainment now. It's just like, I haven't felt like that. I haven't felt like I just haven't felt the level of investment in any game that I did with Final Fantasy IV. And I played this on an emulator. I feel like I was committing a major sin by first playing this game on an emulator. I'm like, why didn't I play this game when I was younger
Well,
on the
some
Super
of us
Nintendo?
have to now with every, who I don't have SNES cartridges anymore. So it's
But I have to read. Sorry, I got to read
Oh.
Salty's 12-month member chat. It says,
Okay.
1 year. Look at you, you magnificent and savage drunk god Nerdporeal. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Drunkporial's a myth.
He's probably been drinking himself. Hey Salty.
But
But
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
but of course, for me, Final Fantasy VI is my favorite Final Fantasy. It has all of these. First of all, it's the only Final Fantasy with the most characters with many depths to each one of them. Each one has an arc. They're playable characters. They're all different from all different ages and walks of life. Many of them have flaws. No one is above the other, and they're all very highly entertaining. Now, Final Fantasy VI is definitely character driven. It definitely has the awesome story, but it's character driven, and the characters drive that story, and that's what makes it so special. You can feel the emotion even through the pixel art with each one, what they're dealing with. I mean, you have Celeste's arc as far as, she was an Imperial soldier for the Gasolian Empire, and then after the already getting doubts, and then after the Doma incident and everything else, she gets imprisoned for betraying her empire, and it's a very dark thing. And then when she joins the Returners, because Locke saves her, she has to receive she's already kind of cold, which I think her element of ice, her original first element of ice, her predominant element, is actually perfect for her because of what, where she came from. But she has a awesome arc of her own in that story. I mean, you talk about, now today everyone's like, we need a strong female character and stuff. And I'm like, have you not seen Final Fantasy VI where you have Terra and Celeste? I mean, Celeste, basically in Final Fantasy VI, there wasn't really a main character, but that technically, if you think about it, there were two co-main characters, and that would be Terra in the world of balance, and Celeste
in the first half.
Celeste in the world of ruin, because Celeste is the one that gathers up everybody. She realizes that she can no longer be living in this kind of way, and needs to end Kefka before it gets worse.
I have to say, I have a confession to make. I played 4, then I played 5. My RPG journey started with Mario RPG a long time ago as a kid. Mm-hmm. I rented it, but then in college, my JRPG journey actually truly started. So I started with Chrono Trigger, then Final Fantasy IV,
mm-hmm.
And then because I had the emulator, I was able to play Final Fantasy V, where the main character's name was not Bart, but Butts.
Butts, I know.
Butts.
But then they kind of changed the Barts because I was like,
and I was living on campus as I was in college. So someone on campus actually hooked me up with a PS1 emulator. So I skipped 6, which I didn't realize was 3, and I started playing 7. I didn't play 6 until the following year. And then when I played 6, I was like, holy shit. Whoa, this game. like first it started off a little slow. You're in the mines of Narsh, and then they discover Terra, and then Locke is like the other in the beginning. He's like the other main character besides Terra,
right?
Who kind of, I think he's the one that rescues her.
Yes.
And then that's kind of where the journey really starts to begin. And of course, through her flashbacks, we first see the character of Kefka, the main villain, the mad jester, clown, magic knight, whatever he is.
He's literally, I always say he's literally Clown World because he destroys the world. So I mean,
Yeah. So
through his ego.
so like he is a piece of work. Like you first he burns Edgar and Sabin's or Edgar's castle. I forget what it's called.
The Figaro Castle. Yes.
Figaro Castle. And then, and this one I'll never forget. I will never forget this part. What is Cayenne's town or Cyan's town?
Doma.
Doma.
Kingdom of Doma.
So they're besieging Doma, and Kefka's like, you know what? We're wasting too much time and resources. Just poison the river. And I think you're playing as Sabin and Sabin.
Yes.
So you have Edgar as the king of
Figaro.
Figaro, and then you have Sabin, who is his martial
brother.
arts monk, lost brother. Because that's one thing about Final Fantasy tropes. You have a lost sibling. Like
Well,
in
and
Final Fantasy V, yeah, Princess Lena has a lost sister named Ferris, who is a pirate, who is the captain of the pirates. Well, in 6, you have King Edgar, who has a long lost brother named Sabin, who is a cave dwelling martial artist or something.
Well, he's playing his character is like a monk class, so they were very typical classes in Final Fantasy, very kind of D&D. I would say D&D style because of there's different classes for characters and such. So Sabin would be the monk class in this kind of instance.
But but when you're in Doma. And you're trying, and I think you're playing as Cyan. You're trying to get to your wife and child.
Oh, I know.
You're trying to get to them before they drink any of the water, and you get there, and it's too late. I was like, I mean, my heart dropped when I played 7 with what happens. Spoiler: what happens to Eris or Aerith, depending on what version you.
The North American version or the Japanese version, yeah.
Yeah. So that I mean that was just a shocking. But but this scene in this game, my heart dropped. I was like, whoa, this. I was like, whoa. I felt horrible for like a day after. Well, maybe not a day, but I felt horrible for at least a few hours. Like there's points in shows where or games or stories where something you don't think is going to happen, something so dark that's going to happen happens. And well, I guess it varies for people. Like, you know, there's an anime show I watched where throughout the series, this daughter and her mother hated each other and wanted to kill each other. Well, let's just say something happens in the penultimate episode that I didn't think was going to happen, because let's just say the mother was wicked. And let's just say something happens, and the way it happens, I was just like, dude, I'm sorry, but yeah, the poisoning of the water, I'll never forget that moment in the game.
And then meeting his family on the ghost train and wanting to go run after them, but they have to cross over the plane, so to speak. So because their plane of existence, because they're ghosts now, they're dead. Uh-oh. Guys. Okay, keep it civil in the chat.
All right, I still
behave, boys, kids.
Here's the thing: I still have to read this.
You go in that corner.
I still have to read this as George Takei. So, Mr. Tickle Trunk for Canadian $5. We never thought a personal opinion could be wrong, Dempsey, but here we are. Oh my! All right, that's the one thing. Thank you for the Canadian $5. And then we got another one from for $2. In Final Fantasy IV, rename Sid to Kaboom. You'll thank me later. Oh my!
Oh my!
I just have to. So yeah, that's my Mr. Tickle Trunk. He's probably like, oh Jesus. And I want to say hello to Real Azimoto. He says, nice accent. I don't have. I speak perfect. I speak perfect King's English. Or Queen's English. Well, no, the Queen. May God rest the Queen's soul. God save the Queen or King. I don't know.
The King's language. Yes. So
I'm Chicagoan. You know, the Bulls, the Bears.
Da Bears.
Da Bears.
but yeah, no, I'm this the overall story, and it's a they packed that because they pushed that cartridge because that was they were looking for something. I think they were looking for something else. They were actually when they released 6, they were working on 7 with the intention of putting it on an SNES cartridge until PlayStation came out with their
Hmm.
console, and they were like, yeah, we because they pushed Final Fantasy 6. They used every graphical inch of every little thing in that cartridge. Like that cartridge was maxed out to the like everything. It was maxed with all the graphics, the story, the pixels, every music, everything. So when they were working because they were working they didn't start I mean they started working on 7 but they hadn't quite like it was more like in development type of thing. And when PlayStation came out they were like yeah, we need room. It's like, so that's what they did. I mean, that's basic. I mean, that's probably
And
that's probably
Nintendo,
far more
yeah,
nuanced with it, but that's how it
Nintendo,
happened.
yeah, Nintendo screwed the pooch on this one. Like they had a
Yeah.
chance to do this. They had a chance to work with Sony to do this, and they're like, no.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was still Yamauchi was still running Nintendo in the '90s, and he was just like, no, no, we're going to stick with cartridges. And well, PS1 was the best selling console of that generation. N64 N64 didn't sell nearly as well as the NES or Super NES.
Yeah.
I mean, it went down. It kept going. Like each console generation went down for Nintendo. Then all of a sudden, the Wii went right back up to top, and then
Mm-hmm.
Wii U went all the way to like rock bottom, to the
Yep.
point where they had to discontinue the system and release the Switch. And the Switch, I haven't been keeping up, but the Switch has been doing pretty well sales wise, mainly because they hybrid their their home console and their handheld, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what the Switch is. So there's no handheld anymore. That the Switch covers both now. So
Yeah. And I mean, it would have been fascinating to see if they had tried something. I don't know. I think people fell in because people ask me this question too of if Final Fantasy 6 was the first PS1 Final Fantasy or PlayStation Final Fantasy, do you think it would change? And I'm thinking I think it the way they push the limits with all of that pixel art, I don't know it would have I don't it's kind of hard because I think this I mean, I know there's Nos in the chat and he and I give each other beef over like Final Fantasy 6 is better than Final Fantasy 7 or Final Fantasy 7 is better than 6. But it's it's all in good fun or what have you. But I think if you're a true Final Fantasy fan, you appreciate what each game brings. Now, there's always going to be really bad ones, like not very many people like 8, although there are fans of 8. But at the same time, I think each game has its good value. It's just most have better value than others, and it's you can appreciate where um each game has it in its own right. It's kind of like there's no continuity, there's no like, whatever characters continue on. That's for Dissidia. Those are those Dissidia games. And those are great games too. Those are fun because you get to play all of your favorite main characters or villains or what have you. And they fight each other and they have their own stories in those games too without taking away from their games. So it's kind of, those are great games too. Um uh but I just saw Words of Paradise say it with a chest mags. 6 is miles above 7.
I'll have
I
to.
mean,
I mean 6.
I
I'll
think
say this 6. I think 6 is. I think 6 is one of the top games. It's very close and tied with 7 for me, but I think 7 still has the original 7. I can't speak for the newer 7, the remake.
right.
I did enjoy it though, but the 7, the original 7, I was even like it didn't really have as shocking of a moment even with Eris and all that, but like the whole thing of what happens to Cloud and how the thing that explains Cloud and why he is the way he is in the beginning and how it's explained later, it was just like I was just like, holy shit, this is deep shit. I mean, like the only thing that I will definitely give that 6 did way better was a better conclusion, a better epilogue. Like 6 has the best epilogue of the entire series. Like every character's story was wrapped up. So in that regard, I understand why all you guys like 6 more. And because 7 didn't even have an epilogue. The moment Meteor got thwarted, that was the end. Right. So you didn't really see what ultimately happened. You just see 498 years later, Red 13 is running with his pack, his pack of descendants or something. He's still alive. So what happened to Cloud? Oh, we're gonna make a movie. We're gonna make a movie called Advent Children, and then that will say that, and you know. And I actually like, so in that regard, I understand, and I understand why.
See, I think there's so many little things too in 6 that are gems and nostalgia and everything else of like our childhood or how we grew up. But even Mr. Ticklechung says, no, we just like 6 because you can suplex a tree. And it's true. But I mean, I think again, each Final Fantasy has its place, and you know, of course, each one's gonna have its faults because Final Fantasy VIII, there's a lot of story in that is kind of dumb. That wasn't a game that I was attracted to. But it's just, you know, the premise just didn't seem meh. I liked 10. I like 10. You know, a lot of people like 9. I like 10, and it's
I didn't like 10. I found it forgettable.
There's going to be differences of a, you know, opinion there. So I mean, I don't really particularly care for.
I did like 9 though. 9 was 9. I really.
A lot of people like 9. A lot of people like 9.
Because I think 9. I only played 9 once. I only played it once. It was a great soundtrack. It was one of Nobu's one of his best works. Mm-hmm. Like 9, I remember the soundtrack really well. 10, not so much. And 10 was pretty much his last thing. And the one thing that like ties everything together for me is, and the thing that has stayed with me the most with the series is not even the story. It's the music. It's the timeless music. Oh, and I mean, I'm playing Selly's theme right now. Like I didn't download the entire soundtrack. I download the ones that are my favorites. That from this game. So I think 4 still has the most iconic soundtrack. I love 7's soundtrack, but 6 is just like, it's just all around good.
Well, there's even like I love Final Fantasy 6 music. There's even you can even listen to Rachel's theme, which is Locke's love who died.
Yeah.
And Rachel, that's just beautiful. So, and then you have so there's a lot of personal deaths in 6, where you have Setzer's love, and then you have Locke's love, and then Celeste's Celeste dealing with her own personal stuff. Everybody's dealing with this stuff, and then you know, Terra realizing who she is, and you know what she is and what she was used for. Can you imagine realizing that you killed multiple people for an experiment?
No.
I mean, and then waking up and then facing that reality. That is how do you, I mean, and then when you fail, how it's so there's something that I just thought of. This is really interesting now. It's coming to my head. You have the MCU and the Infinity War. You have the situation where that was the world of balance, and then the Infinity War happened, and everybody snapped out. Think of that as the Kafka moment of rearranging the world and destroying it. So, I mean, everybody scatters. You know, of course, it's everything like that. But then you have the second half, which is supposed to be the end game, but Final Fantasy VI does it better in that gathering up all the heroes and realizing, our world is what it is. It's faulted. It's messed up. It's faulted. It's completely changed. But we can still save some semblance of this, because if we don't get rid of Kefka, he's just gonna go crazy and mad again. And they clearly need to end it all and end magic. to be able to stop the destruction of the world.
So magic was a thing of the past. In this world, magic was a thing of the past that was conducted by these three. I forget, like these were they gods or something and they got to a point where they were taking humans and converting them into what they call,
they instilled the magic of their own magic, the Warring Triad.
Yeah,
instilled their own magic, and so they created a new kind of race, which were the Espers.
Yeah, so they converted humans into Espers, and so ultimately the Triad encased themselves into statues, sealed themselves away, and then the Espers sealed themselves away too in their own little world, their own little environment, ecosystem, biome, whatever you want to call it, away from humans. And now this game begins where this empire, the Gestalt Empire, led by the Emperor Gestalt, and of course Kefka is one of his subordinates. They start finding these Espers. They're finding remains of these Espers, I believe, and they're harnessing them into this program called Magitech, and basically converting magic or combining magic and technology, because this is a steampunk style setting. This is not a medieval setting. This is a steampunk setting. So I'll be honest, when I first got to the breaking of the world, and I'm going to be like, I was listening to a channel today called The Vile Eye, and he talks about villains and like the nature of evil with these different villains. And I was listening to the one about Kefka, and he brings up the breaking of the world, and I'm thinking, breaking of the world, huh? Where have I heard the breaking of the world before? Wheel of Time, which is that's the prologue of the first book is about. So the breaking of the world happens, and that reminded me of the second half of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So very different situations, but it's the same idea that the world changes. So in Ocarina of Time, in both cases, there's a time gap. There's a for Final Fantasy VI, it's a 1-year time gap, and for Zelda, it's a 7-year time gap. And so whereas Celis wakes up after I think a year or something.
Yeah, it's like a year or two or something like that. Yeah. And
so she was in a coma for a year, and then Link was in the Sacred Realm. He was sealed up by the Master Sword for 7 years, and so he's grown up by the time he reemerges into the world. And the moment you step out of the Temple of Time, the world looks like complete like hell. Like the first thing you see is a fiery demonic halo above Death Mountain. That's the very first thing you see in the view when you're walking out of the Temple of Time. I remember I saw that when I was a kid. I was like, holy shit, this game got serious. Yeah. And then when I played 6 years later and seeing how the world changed in that game, I immediately thought of Ocarina, and I actually bring that up in my Ocarina of Time video.
Oh, you did? I remember that. Yeah.
And I liked it. I loved that you started off as one character. You had to go out on a journey, and Link had to do the same thing.
Right.
He had to go out onto the world and find his friends, who all became sages, who all got captured by monsters, and they became sages. He had to rescue them, and then they helped him save the world from Ganondorf. Well, in this case, you're off to find everybody got scattered. The Fellowship got scattered, and you're out there as Celis, and you have to find everybody, and they're spread over like 2 or 3 continents. So the first person that you have to find is the Han Solo character, and that is Setzer with the one airship. And he still, even though the airship got completely cut in half at the end of the first half of the game during the breaking, he has another one. He has another one. You can fly everywhere in the world after that. And I was surprised Locke was the last character that you can get, or that you get before going to take on Kefka, because in the second half of the game, so Kefka takes over the world. He misaligns the statues, and he manages to somehow procure all their power, and so he becomes a god. And so
you have to basically fight a god. Yeah, you have to fight a crazy man.
And so there's like a cult of Kefka that like worships him, and then everybody else, like if you can't say anything bad. If you say anything bad about Kefka, he's going to shoot his what is that? What is that beam? He shoots that angel holy beam or that angel.
Yeah, it's one of the god powers. I forgot what the name of it is. I forgot what it was named. It's something some holy beam or something Ultima or something like that. But I can't quite remember. But it's funny because it's a great story in that it's the MCU tried to do something similar to this. I don't know if this was their influence or not, but they didn't get it right. Where the heroes that you actually fail, they lose. But then they have to find the purpose to fight again and be able to preserve the world that they have left, no matter how messed up it is. And there's so much symbolism in all of that, where yes, our world is messed up, but it is worth fighting for to keep around. They pick themselves, they find each other, they pick each other back up. Some of them are hesitant to do anything because of their own self-doubts. I mean, you go look at the character Tara, for instance. She already had a shaky having confidence in herself, and then after everything happening and realizing what you've done too, I'm sure that would definitely shake your confidence. But then she realizes that she also has to fight for the people that she loves, the children of Mowgli's, who have no mother, and she becomes a mother herself, and that's a purpose for her. It's such a beautiful story of there's no one putting anyone above the other, and it's men and women, like real men and women, coming together and fighting and trying to preserve the world that they have left. So, or at least their world that they have left, no matter how messed up it is. So it's worth saving.
It is, and I loved how that was like the final dialogue that they have with Kefka right before the final fight starts.
Yep.
Because he is nihilistic. He is totally nihilistic. He has always been alone. He has always been. He's pretty much been. He's gradually gotten more insane over the course of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So. Like he starts off kind of buffoonish in a bit, but then he starts doing more and more atrocities, and then it gets to the point where he ultimately, like, you hear him muttering, like you're trying to avoid him. I forget when, but like I think you're in the castle or something. You're hiding.
Kefka's tower.
And he's muttering about aligning or misaligning the triad or something. So they already kind of they're already setting that moment up, and then when he ultimately betrays everybody. So what's funny is I didn't even realize it, but like one thing that another moment in the game that surprised me is when the Empire was pretending to be their ally, or we want to help, we're the good guys, everybody.
Yeah, he's a crazy dude. We don't like him either, and it's kind of like, but you already feel that even as you're playing the game, you're kind of going, should we trust the Empire, because they literally killed a bunch of people in Doma. So it's kind of, you already have that, and that's good story.
Kefka was the because Kefka was the perpetrator, so right. they imprisoned him, like, oh, we're putting him away for a long time. Don't worry about him.
Yeah,
he's out of the picture. Yeah, sure. And then they're led to the Espers. And right when they were about to do something, Kefka comes in. He just starts snatching all the Espers, like they're turning them into these little jewels, and he slays General Leo. I was like, holy shit!
Oh, I know that scene. I remember seeing that scene the first time, and I'm like, because you already feel like, okay, so yeah, General Leo. This was great storytelling in general, to be quite honest. Where General Leo, yes, is Gestalian Empire, but you already as a player, as somebody who's playing the game, you already know in the Empire who not to trust and who to trust. And General Leo was one of the people that you trusted, because the way they developed his character in just a short amount of time. Yes. It's very short. You already feel like, okay, he's an ally. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they just snatch him away in that manner. And it's like,
Yes.
whoa.
Yeah.
And then you realize how far gone Kefka really is. It's not just the Doma incident, just completely in that instance where he's completely off the rails. And it's just, wow. I mean, you already know he was crazy. Then when that sort of thing happens, and it's a very senseless murder. It's
Yeah.
it's nasty. I mean, I know it's in pixel art form, but
It's
you can
16.
already
Yeah.
imagine in your head if it was something like the style of Final Fantasy 16, for instance, the amount of impact that would be.
Mhm.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
And see, that's the one thing about some of the pixel games is that they had such good dialogue, some of the dialogue could have been wanky as far as wonky in due to translation errors, but also the story and the characters, the pixel art was beautiful, but because of the strong development of the characters in the story, it almost allowed the audience to create their own what it would look like in real life. Like it allowed the audience to imagine this situation. Now we have more realistic type looking games. Can you we were already thinking in these terms when we were playing these games. Just because it's pixel art doesn't mean it can't invoke that kind of imagination. And they still gave us that emotion without the graphics. So that's what makes a good story a good story.
Yeah, and that's I mean that's what it drew me to playing these games. And like you're playing, I'm playing some of these more recent Final Fantasies. Like I tried playing 15 and 13, and I'm just like, this is boring, and this is awful.
13 is not. It's so funny too. 13 is actually very popular in Japan, but nobody around, everybody else around the world is like, what is this?
Yeah, I'm playing it. I played
Same
like
with 15.
I played
15
8
very much
hours of it, and I'm like, I have no I have no interest in continuing to play. So I mean, like a game has to really get me to really it has to really get me invested to keep playing. And games like 4, 6, 7, heck,
7.
5. I even love the first Final Fantasy, the Origins version, but I still I played it for its difficulty and everything. And of course the music, the other thing about the later games is their soundtracks are not memorable. Why? Because Nobuo Uematsu is not left after 10. He left 20 years ago now.
Well, even 10's music is pretty memorable. A lot of Final Fantasy, to Xanakind. Oh gosh, that's such an emotional, provoking song. Gosh, Nobuo Uematsu is he knows how to bring a story to life with his music, and it's almost like the cherry on the cherry on the ice cream. It's just he knows how to evoke that emotion to be able to help weave that story of the game, and knows how to bring that character to life through his music too. And it's just it's just amazing. One of the things I would love to do is go to a Distant Worlds concert, but they have to come near me somewhat, and I'm probably sure it'd be probably DC, which nah. But they but if they come near me, and I'm not gonna say where exactly I live, but but I'm not don't say anything.
No, of course not.
But
she lives on the second moon, where Zamus and Zeromus lives. That's where Max.
Zeromus. I would. Well, actually, I'm in the Esper world. That's where my hometown is.
The Esper world's within that world.
Yeah. If they ever came in my town, oh my gosh. The thing is, I have looked on their website at tickets, and a lot of their tickets are always sold out. And I'm like, I don't know. I would love to go to a concert, but it has to be close near me, and most of the time their tickets are sold out. So
yeah, I didn't go. I never really went to a Distant Worlds concert. So I went to they had this concert when I was in college. It was called Play a Video Game Symphony, and it first premiered in Chicago, and everybody was there. Nobuo Uematsu was there. Koji Kondo of Mario and Zelda was there. Yasunori Mitsuda of Chrono Trigger and Xenogears, and he was there. You had there were several other Halo composer was there. Jeremy Soule was there. A lot of people were there.
Speaking about Jeremy Soule, sorry to interrupt, but there's this great website, y'all, if you ever want to check it out, of fan made different renditions of your favorite video game music. So you can go to our ocremix.com and you can find different variations of Terra's theme and everything else. You know who also did a variation of Terra's theme? Jeremy Soule.
Did he?
Yes,
I'll have to look that up now.
He uploaded it. Actually, I'll put it in the private chat, and I'll look at it. But while you're talking, so I won't interrupt. But when you said that, I was like, let me tell you, Jeremy Soule did a Terra theme. So let me look that up for you and continue on with your story there.
So I saw the video. I went to the Video Game Symphony. That was my first ever experience doing something like that, going to a nerdy event.
Right.
And yeah, it was a bunch of people my age or younger, or maybe slightly older going. So it's not your typical, symphony goers and everything. And someone actually screamed, "Play Zelda!" And Zelda was actually saved for the end, but they played stuff from 7. So they played stuff from almost every major franchise, video game franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Fantasy, they played stuff from 7. So what do you think they played? One Winged Angel.
Of course.
I'll be honest, I love I love One Winged Angel, but I am sick to death of hearing that live. Like, honestly. So years later, I think it was 2015, I go to Anime Central. That's the anime convention that they have in Rosemont, right by O'Hare Airport in Chicago, every May. Okay. And they had a mini Distant Worlds concert where they had like 12 musicians playing with same conductor as the Play Symphony, Arnie Roth. And so they're playing pieces from different from the different games. Of course, I did hear 7. I did hear the One Winged Angel again. It was fun. It was fun hearing it, but they did play something from 6. They played the Decisive Battle.
Okay.
I don't have it on me, so I'm going to play the other better theme, the Fierce Battle. But yeah, so I got to hear the Decisive Battle live, and that was just, oh geez, I loved it. Hearing that and hearing the Red Wings theme from 4 was just, I loved hearing those live. Like, I want to hear the older stuff. I want to hear the not as popular stuff being performed.
Not the typical, and Final Fantasy 7, I would say probably brought Final Fantasy mainstream, which is, that's a good thing. But the only reason why, I wouldn't say the only reason why it became popular, but one of the reasons why it became substantially popular is because it had the graphics.
Yeah.
And it was on PlayStation, because PlayStation was heavily promoting its new console and product.
I will never forget that. I'll never forget that commercial, like that 7's commercial back in '97 when it came out, and you see a guy riding a motorcycle with spiky hair. I was like, dude, this looks awesome. Like,
oh yeah, so 4 was definitely I would say 75% medieval, 25% steampunk. 6 was definitely like 60% medieval. No, I would say probably half and half, because it had a king, it had a kingdom and everything else, and then you had kind of a knight in Scion and everything else. But it was definitely heavily more steampunk. 7 came out, it was definitely like 90%.
It was cyberpunk. It was actually cyberpunk at that point.
Yeah. But I put in the private chat, and I can put it in the live chat too as well. But I put in the private chat Jeremy Soule's rendition of Terra's theme.
Okay. All right. Turned off that theme. Let me see. I have. There it is.
And every piece of music on overclocked remix.org, sorry guys, is um for the most part copyright free. So because it's not original to the actual one. It's actually fan made
Hmm.
music. So you shouldn't get copywritten. However, sometimes what I think all they ask is that you kind of give credit to the song. And there's ways to do it. I can show
Okay,
you.
so so everybody subscribe to Jeremy's Soul. There we go. All right, so if you guys can hear it, let me know. I'm gonna play it now. Audio should be shared too. It's been a while since I've been to OC Remix. I used to get a whole bunch of stuff from them.
Actually, my theme for my intro, I have it. I love the orchestra version of this.
I'm liking this. This is
I
great.
love it. I love this part of the song.
There's more. There's even more gravitas in this.
Oh yeah, and then it keeps going. I love this part of the song.
So we're about halfway. So if I get hit, we get hits. I don't care.
This is transformative, YouTube.
Nas, that's an understatement. I am total, like, I'm rocking, nerding, geeking, everything out. I'm everything out right now. Okay, that didn't sound right. Don't clip that. I've been. Oh
I
shoot.
love the piano. Oh god.
Oh yes. This is great.
Isn't it wonderful?
I missed that one. Wow.
Isn't it beautiful? Like I'm
It
like,
is. Yeah,
and it's like, oh my god, there's Jeremy Soule doing this, but because real composers like Jeremy Soule, Nobuo Uematsu, and others, they appreciate each other's work, and
oh
they
yeah.
also want to delve into each other's work, not to take away, but to be like, because they all talk to each other. I mean, whether they're friends or not, who knows, but they're all colleagues. They all appreciate each other's artwork that they've done.
Oh
So
yeah, I
of
agree.
course he would do something like this because for a lot of people, especially for a lot of Final Fantasy fans who grew up with the series from the earlier days to now, a lot of us consider Final Fantasy 6 as the top of the list. And I can understand. I mean, a lot of industry types, like probably like Jeremy Soule, appreciate games like Final Fantasy 6. So it's just cool. It was one of the things that we discovered in the early to mid 2000s when he posted that or whatever. Everybody's like, what? it
Oh,
was
so that was so
but
mid 2000s, huh? Okay, all right.
yeah,
So
and it's kind of like it was so unassuming, and it's Overclock Remix is such a well-known hub for like people to
yeah.
put in their own variations of their favorite video game
Oh,
music. And what,
I
you have a famous composer doing
yeah,
this?
there's yeah, I know it's insane. Like I think the last time the one thing I remember from getting OC Remix, a buddy of mine, old friend of mine, hooked me up with the you've played Super Mario World, haven't you? The castle theme of Super Mario World.
I've
There
played
is a
Super Mario
great.
Brothers, but I don't remember playing Super Mario World.
That's the one with Yoshi, Super Nintendo. Da 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 da
Probably,
da da
probably
da da
not. But
da da da.
I always played Yoshi in Super Mario Kart.
Okay, well, I guess that's close enough.
And
But
I mastered the Rainbow Road in that one. That one's hard.
yeah, it's funny. It was that the Super Mario Kart. They played that Rainbow Road theme in the movie. I was.
I
I'll be
was
honest.
like,
Like
oh
I've gotten into debates with friends about what was the more popular Rainbow Road, the Super Nintendo one or the N64 one,
my.
and I had to agree it was the N6. I think the theme for the N64 one is the better theme, but I was surprised to hear the Super Nintendo Rainbow Road theme in the
I
movie.
was like, oh my god, they did this. I'm like, I need to get myself an SNES again and get the Super Mario Kart. And oh man, I need to do that. I need to get a Switch so I can play Super Nintendo Mario Kart and stream so people can watch me play it. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, it's been since the 90s since I've played that game. So I will probably be all over the place.
I'll be honest. The I've
I remember mastering all of that stuff because I play with two older brothers. So of course you
yeah.
have to compete. And so you have to learn to master it. And yeah.
Yeah. The I yeah the yeah I can't play like I'm just not into the newer Mario Karts. Like I still only play the Super Nintendo one and the
See,
N64 one.
I like the days when you had your controller.
Yes.
And even though you turned it, it didn't turn, but you still think it turned because you did.
Yes.
I love that nostalgia and that feeling.
Yes.
Nowadays the Wii, you had the wheel, and
Yeah, you
that
did.
and it was the wheel, and I'm like, this is not fun anymore. The challenge is like that was, I don't know, the whole point.
It was an odd experience. I just ended up just putting the Wiimote and the nunchuck, and I just played it normally, with
Mhm.
the joystick and all. But I never, those games never really stuck with me. They just felt derivative. I know I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, but yeah, that's why I don't play new Smash Brothers or updated
Oh god, I love Smash
iterations of
Brothers.
Smash Brothers. Or I played the first game a long time ago. I played a little bit of Brawl. And I was just like, you know what? That's it was fun. It was fun playing, Mario versus Link. Or I first learned Samus's name from Smash Bros. Because I didn't play Metroid yet at the time.
Mhm.
But yeah, Luigi. I didn't even know who Ness was. Ness is from Earthbound. Kirby. Kirby was always the character I usually played the most.
See, I like to play Pikachu because I think when Smash Brothers came out, I think Pokemon the Gen 1 or Gen 2 Pokemon was out or something like that. So I always liked playing Pikachu because I mean you can electrocute people.
Oh yeah, Pika.
Pika.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but like I loved but yeah, I played the hell out of the N64 one, and then
Mhm.
same with Star Fox 64. That was another good GoldenEye. I got into Bond at the same time I got into GoldenEye, so it was the perfect thing. Watching the Bond movies, all the older Bond movies for the first time, and then playing GoldenEye at the same time was just a hell of an experience. This was a few years after it came out, so
Oh yeah.
I loved that. But there's just so much nostalgia there for that. So,
I feel like we should have like a Super Smash Brothers like co-op or something like that, and just like play.
I'm gonna be totally useless. Like I
know.
am
Well, see,
terrible at Smash Brothers.
That's the point. Like just playing against each other, like Super Mario Kart or whatever, and being like, "What we."
Yeah, I don't I played we've like in college we used to play that all the time, and we had a few people who were super duper competitive, like they were competitive in sports, and they were even more competitive in Smash Brothers. Like I would be destroyed. I was like, okay, this is I am not even putting up. I don't even know how they're playing this. I was like, okay, I'm done. I am not. I don't even have the skills to take you guys on half the time. So. And now you see kids who weren't even alive when the original Smash Brothers game came out. This was '99. I was right before I started high school, and the kids now who weren't even alive then are even bigger monsters than anybody I ever knew. So it's insane. Steve's kids, his two sons are better than me in video games. Like his older son kicks my ass in Mega Man, like you wouldn't believe. And like I tried to race him, I got destroyed every time. And same with Easton and Mario. Easton's been kicking my butt in Mario, and I did play him because I met him. I did meet him in person. He played me in chess 4 times. I played against him 4 times in chess, and he beat me 4 times.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, that's because these younger kids, they're growing up with this technology and such, and whereas the technology was growing up with us. So then,
yes.
Then we became adults, and we don't have as much time to sit there and play video games like some of the younger kids now, and that they're growing up with the technology far more advanced at their age in life than it was for us. So we're turning into boomers.
I still think we had the better. I think we had the better
consoles.
I think we had the better consoles, and we got to see the change. I think we got to see the change, and I'll be honest, the games of the '90s, especially like these Final Fantasies, are some of the best games ever made compared to even today's standards. And I don't want to hear any bullshit about, oh, this didn't age well or that didn't age well. Fuck that. Excuse my language.
No, I mean, I can still, it's funny. I know, I love the Pokemon games, but I will still always say, because maybe it's just because that's my entry into Pokemon, but I grew up first with Gen 1, and I grew up with that on my I first played did I play it on my brother's? It was the first Game Boy. Game Boy. It was black and white. It was thick and gray and everything. And then the second of its series was the Game Boy Color, and I actually had, until I gave it away because I was dumb. Because I had the Game Boy Advance, and I was like, well, I don't need the Game Boy Color anymore, so I gave it to one of my cousins, and I think it's lost. So I'm upset about that. But the original Game Boy Color came out as a little bit smaller than the original, and it was, of course, colorized screen, and it was purple. And then they came out with other variation of colors or whatever, but it was purple. And I played Pokemon Red on that. And that, I still think Gen 1 is one of my favorites, but not only because it has a simple storyline, it's very simple based, but I feel like it ages well in that I'm sorry, but you're not going to be able to, like, now everything is more digitized and online, everything else. You have all of these glitches. I mean, you have the classic glitches in Pokemon games that you can get Missing No, and you can also there's a glitch where you can actually get Mew without a Game Shark or cheat code or something like that. I mean, you can't take away stuff like that because that was part of the game, and it's like
Yeah.
you can't get that stuff now. It's like doing that stuff now, like kids don't even understand that sort of stuff. I mean, it's just like what Miss Tickle Trunk just said. Probably that was a little cheat code there for Sid, changing Sid's name to Kaboom or whatever in Final Fantasy IV. There might be something special to that for Final Fantasy IV. That's something that was really neat, that some of the it's kind of like an Easter egg or something neat that the game devs left. And it's, because people want to discover this stuff, and it's part of the game. It's part of the charm of the older games too. And just because some of it is a little janky or the graphics doesn't age, it's for the story. Well, it's some of it is, even for the Pokemon Red game, where there's some, you create a cheat code without a cheat code, like doing the Mew thing, getting Mew, and that is true. You don't have to put a cheat code. You just have to do these certain steps to be able to get Mew.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know you could get Mew. That's news for me.
You can get Mew. Yes.
I did play Gen 1.
It's kind of tricking. It's kind of tricking the game a little bit, and it's actually really cool. Yeah, you can get Mew around Cerulean City.
Okay, Cerulean City. I'll keep that in mind.
That's the third. That's the third gym badge.
That's the water. That's the water where you
with is it May? I think I remember the May.
Misty.
Excuse me. Yes, Misty. It was one of the, because it was, well, you don't start off as Ash. I do like the fact that they tried to in Gen 2, they continued the lore of the actual games, having Red be the champion at the end of Gen 2, Crystal, Silver, and Gold. Who Red is your original character technically in Gen 1. So I do like that concept of that, where it's interconnected a little bit in that way. But yes, it's Brock, Misty, Sarge,
who are in the season 1 or the Indigo League of the Pokemon anime, which is came out. I think I was in 8th grade. My brother was a little kid though, so like Super Mario Brothers Super Show to me is what Pokemon is to him. It's purely nostalgic, and I think most of the stuff I know about Pokemon came from that first couple episodes of the first season of the anime. But I did play. I borrowed a Super Game Boy. I don't know if you remember the Super Game Boy, but you could play Game Boy cartridges on a Super Nintendo cartridge and play it on your TV. So that's how I played.
Yeah.
I was playing my brother's, I think it was blue or yellow.
And you could choose your little, like, your letter.
And there was color. There was some color. There was a slight color palette. But yeah.
I remember having the Pikachu game, and it had the Pikachu what do you want to call it? The Pikachu letterbox to the side. So
yeah,
it was really, really cool. Yeah, it was a conversion cartridge. And yeah, I would play it like that too, and it was just so much fun.
Yeah, and like it's so weird. And I was watching some YouTube channel was they had a skit of people acting like the people in the Pokemon game, where you're walking in the city or you're walking in a forest or on a street, and all of a sudden somebody's like literally standing there, and then when you walk past something, it was do. And then they walk up to you and they're like, I challenge you to a Pokemon fight. And then you go into a Pokemon battle. Like, can you imagine that? Just like, someone just stand there waiting for you just so that you could fight them. And and somebody made a skit showing that. It's so ridiculous. I thought it was funny.
It's like youngster Billy challenges you to a fight.
Yes. But yeah, the anime, like, that was one of the earliest. I mean, I watched that with my brother. It was just a goofy little anime. Then, I mean, the anime I saw before that, the other thing I kind of wanted to cover with you, if we have some time, Sailor Moon. Like, I used to,
Sailor Moon.
I forget what it was, but when I was a kid, especially I think 5th grade or something.
Uh-huh.
I was watching Mighty Morphin Power Rangers like it was going
Oh,
out of
I
hell.
love. Okay,
Every
I always played the Pink Ranger in my friend group.
yeah,
Kimberly.
yeah, Kimberly, yeah, Kimberly was she's still the Pink Ranger. Better than what's her name? Her replacement, Kat, I think was her name.
Yeah, I was
I
so
mean,
upset when
she was
she
hot too, but yeah.
left.
Kimberly was Kimberly. We were all in love with Kimberly.
Oh yeah.
I won't lie. Um, but watching Power Rangers, I just loved the good versus evil. The stakes were always high, even though they were men in rubber suits, and with
Mhm.
pyrotechnics and everything. But I prefer to watch those type of shows than watching the stuff that they make now on Disney Plus
Yeah.
and Paramount Plus and wherever else now.
She I would much rather watch the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie where Ivan Ooze is in it. Right, more so than any of these other movies. I mean it's cheesy, I know, but at the same time it's got charm and nostalgia in it, and it's got
We watched it. We watched it not too long ago.
yeah,
Because of for Jason David Frank's unfortunate passing.
yep, yep.
And
It's
that was a tough one because that I
that
used
was
to
back in
watch.
December, November or something like that we did
It
that.
was like the day after my birthday, or maybe it was my birthday because I was doing the birthday stream that day. That it was that day. So
Okay, yeah.
yeah, so I was doing a birthday stream that day, and then I hear about this, and the first thing I said during my stream was, call the if you're feeling a certain way, call the suicide hotline
Yeah.
and everything. So
Yeah, that was tragic. I mean, I love it's so funny. So people ask me if I had any like cartoon crushes or character or whatever crushes. I loved Tommy.
oh, not Billy, not Zach, not Jason.
No, I loved Tommy.
I'll be honest. The talking about the movie, when I think about it now, I really wish they had the original actors in the movie. I think the original actors should have been in the movie, not Karen Ashley or Johnny Young Bosch or Steve Cardenas, but it should have been Austin St. John, um, Walter Jones, Toy Trang. She was still with us then, and of course of course David Yost and Amy Jo Johnson, Jason Frank. Like they like those six should have been in the first Power Rangers movie, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's yeah. I hear
Saban,
you.
freaking Saban, you and your penny pinching ways. Why couldn't you pay them more?
I know it was a childhood. It was a favorite like child show. I mean, gosh. And now with some of these actors, oh my gosh, he was so green, he was mysterious. Stop it, Mr. Chuckle Trunk. That's not what it was. I liked Tommy later when he got came on to the Power Rangers as a team. Um, but it's funny when people ask me, it's like, did you have any crushes? I'm like, of course I had crushes on certain characters and TV characters and even cartoon characters. Shoot, I mean, because probably I fell in love because of the story of the character and who they were and the voice actor, but that's just about it.
Yeah,
Um,
that Green Ranger was badass. Like especially if you've and I know most of that footage comes from Zhu Ranger, the Sentai show that first season of Mighty Morphin was adapted
based on.
from.
Mhm.
But like the six but yeah, like the Green Ranger was just like he was a major villain. Like he was dangerous, and like the part one of the Sentai is this one elf looking kid wants to release him, and all the adults are like, no, do not awaken him. He is bad news, and the Zhu Rangers don't know what the hell's going on. And so when they release him, then all hell breaks loose, and there's a wild card in the midst, and he has his own little sword, and he's living on borrowed time. So in Power Rangers, they use the candle to kind of snuff him out or snuff his abilities out. in the original Sentai, the candle was his life. The candle never stopped. So whenever he left his hyperbaric chamber, his interdimensional chamber, he was living on, he could only live on 72 hours. So he could only be outside for a certain amount of time. And if he didn't return, he died.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately what happens, spoiler, in Zhu Ranger, is the Green Ranger dies. That's why the Red Ranger has the whistle, and he has the dagger, and he plays, da da da, and then it gets the Dragon Zord. That's because the Green Ranger's gone, and the Green Ranger was his brother in the Sentai. So
okay,
so there's another little Star Wars moment right there.
It's funny how much I know. I know a lot of people, there's Star Trek and Star Wars and everything, but it's Star Wars influenced a lot of storytelling, and people don't realize the impact that Star Wars brought to culture in general. Because look at Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy has Biggs and Wedge.
Final Fantasy 6 has Biggs and Wedge. Golbez is practically Darth Vader. Like,
yes,
he has the presence of Darth Vader.
And then in Final Fantasy 6, you have the Returners against an Empire.
The Rebels, yep, Empire. You have an Emperor. Heck, I would say Zamus, the evil moon final boss, is kind of like an Emperor to a degree. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what is it? And I know you were just talking about bringing up favorite classic anime or whatever. It was very common in Japan to have like a super Sentai or something super, like a team of people to fight, like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is based on the Japanese version of that. And then you have something like Sailor Moon, which is like a team of girls saving the world. It's so funny because not that I'm bringing this up, but we had a recent movie that was targeted for my demographic, and it definitely has certain political leanings. But hold on, then you have, when you look back,
Oppenheimer. You're talking about Oppenheimer. I knew it. I saw it too. I loved it.
And then you have a show like this that came out in the 90s, early 90s, and you could say that it might have some modern women leadings in a little bit, but there's what I love, like this is a far better movie or show, if you want to look at it like storytelling wise, than the current movie that came out, because Sailor Moon does not like bring any of her people down around her that she loves. She encourages. She's still a teenager trying to grow up, which is really hard to do in a world where she's trying to save the world and also has to deal with teenager stuff. But also she loves her friends. She loves her boyfriend. She admires him and respects him and fights for him too. And
she doesn't. What's funny at first is she hates him. She hates Mamoru.
Well, because she doesn't realize
she's like first thing like that.
Well,
she's the complete slacker.
Well, that's because he called her bunhead. He teased her all the time.
In the original Deke, everybody called her Meatball Head. Meatball Head was what they called her in the original Deke dub. So
it's well, and it's funny because the version that I saw when I was growing up, she wasn't Usagi. So the Viz
Serena.
Media,
she was Serena.
It was Serena and Derek.
Darian.
Darian. Excuse me, one of those names. But it's funny watching the Viz Media version. It's Usagi and Mamoru, and I'm like, okay, so here we go.
That's their original. That's the Japanese name. So I actually saw the Deke dub first. The Deke dub covers almost all of season 1. Like the original Japanese finale for season 1, where they spoiler alert, they kill Beryl and Natalia. That was originally a 2-parter in Japan in the original series, but I think they combined it to a single episode. I was actually listening to the soundtrack of that episode. They actually played a song. they actually played an original song for the Deke dub. I don't know if you heard if you remember this the soundtrack for the Deke dub.
I need to listen to that because it's been a hot minute. And of course things have changed over time with that sort of stuff, because there's different dubs and different stuff, but it's just, you talk about modern entertainment for women. Like, this is such a great storyline, and it's, she doesn't bring anybody down. She tries to uplift everybody else. She fights for her friends. She fights for her family. She fights for the ones that she loves. And that's a lot of responsibility on her shoulders. And she's literally, in so many ways, this is a feminist show because it's got some female empowerment, but not the ugly side of what it is.
I mean,
it's still feminine. It still has feminine quality to it. That's the thing.
So season 1 with the Dark Kingdom, or in the Deke dub, it was the Negaverse, but the Dark Kingdom, and so the Dark Kingdom is run by Metalia. Well, Metalia and her human thrall is Beryl. And under her are the 4 in the manga, they're called guardians or kings or something, but they were just in the original anime. And the original anime is what I like. I watched Sailor Moon Crystal, and there was just too much crying, way too much crying, to the point where I just I'll probably check out the other seasons when they ultimately come out, when they finish it with Sailor Stars, but
they just put Sailor, I think so. Sailor Moon Crystal is the 2nd season, and then Sailor Moon S, I think, is the 3rd season, and they just published that Blu-ray, or they just released that Blu-ray of this 3rd season.
Right. So Sailor Moon Crystal is the remake based off of the more faithful to the manga.
Okay.
And it's covering, and so the original anime does cover the different sagas of the manga, but it didn't really, the director has his own wacky vision for it, let's just say. I think the original Sailor Moon, and you're probably going to totally disagree with me on this, I think the original Sailor Moon was more for boys than for girls, and to a degree.
To a degree. Well, it's really funny because I grew up with of course I'm blonde, so I saw myself in her a little bit. Talk about well, I wasn't inserting myself. I just saw myself some aspects, because you're growing up and you're trying to figure yourself out in a different kind of world. And then I also had it. She wasn't fully a black cat, but she was a tuxedo cat. So I also had a Luna counterpart, and she was my best friend growing up. And I know it sounds weird, but we had her when I was 5 years. We got her when I was 5 years old, and she died when I was 23. So she was she was about 18, 19 years old. So she didn't make it after my graduation. I mean, she didn't make it to my graduation. So she was literally my best friend growing up. And it's really hard to say that about an animal, but when you grow up from literally 5 years old to when you're about ready to graduate college, that's you can't take away that kind of relationship. So it's so I saw a lot of myself with that kind of relationship in her, and it's just it was really kind of ironic at that time how that happened, how all these things aligned, and me watching the show, and I loved it. It's there are dark moments in the show. That's the kicker. There are so many dark moments in the show for a show geared toward, and so you have darker. There were darker kids shows today. Seriously, I'm like, and I was able to handle it. It's okay.
Yeah, like the dark moments, like the first episode, you're seeing a bunch of victims being sucked, all their energies being sucked out of them, for starters,
life energy.
And their life energy is being sucked at, and they look like they're about to die. So that was the first thing. So it was compared to Power Rangers, like you're seeing, like, you're seeing some dark shit right there. But the episode I'll never forget I'll never forget this. This was the second arc of the first series, the first season with the Dark Kingdom.
Mhm.
So so there were the four the four leaders under Beryl. So you started with Jedi, who is the blonde, the short-haired blonde dude, who
Mhm.
he was just pure evil. The Crystal, he's a little bit more fleshed out, but in the original series, he was just pure evil. But then the second dude was Nephrite. He was a brunette, curly,
Mhm.
wavy-haired brunette, and he was still a bad guy, but he meets a sweet girl who happens to be Usagi's friend. I forget her name.
Oh gosh, I forget her name. I always forget her
And
name because she
and
kind of
and he
disappears after a while.
yeah, and so he ends up seeing her kindness and her love, and he has a change of heart. And while during that second segment with this dude, we meet a third general, Zoocyte, who in the original Deke was voiced by a woman. So
Uh-huh.
I thought it was a woman wearing just dressed like a dude. Not the case in the anime, not the case in the Japanese one. It
No,
was actually
and the Viz Media, they actually keep it as the male voice.
yeah. Yeah, and so I never realized it as a kid, but it was two dudes in love with each other. The
Yeah,
third one and the fourth one. I
that's
was just like,
because
I find this out as an adult, like, holy shit, this was what I was watching. Wow, I was like,
I know. Well,
wow.
it's really funny because yeah, bam, it's like right there.
Just leave it. Just leave it to yeah.
But it wasn't really the thing is though, they didn't even them I'm watching the Viz Media version of it. Um I don't like today they shoehorn this stuff in and it's all about that.
Yeah,
Whereas in stories like this, it wasn't. Like you already kind of get some hints of certain things anyway that there might be something there. But it's not in your face either. And
no,
that's the art of a good storyline is to be able to say this is this is not a characteristic of this character. It's just part of the storyline itself, but it's not the storyline. It's not in your face. It's actually it's very it adds to the story, but it's not the story. It's very respectful to the story too. And it's interesting coming from that dynamic or dichotomy because I grew up with what you grew up Serena, it was Princess Serena, Queen Serenity, but it's actually Usagi and all these other names going on now, and it's like, oh, okay, that's different than what I grew up with.
yeah,
Um, and Ray was still Ray, Ami is Amy, and so so on and so forth. But and the Viz Media version, they keep their names, so
yes,
it's very interesting how seeing it now in the kind of more the true form, so to speak. I mean, I know it's not the Japanese version. I like to listen to the English voice actors, um, but at least it has a better form to the the original way it was done. So,
yeah.
but it still it doesn't take away from the story. I don't think it does. When you look back on it, it's very different because you're right. Because I grew up with a woman's voice acting out the Zoocyte's character.
So yeah, so I forgot I did like so Zoocyte literally had like three enemies literally murder the dude. Like he got impaled with
Mhm.
branches or with twigs and branches and everything, and you see him get impaled. Now they use green blood because I guess for censorship or something. I don't know. And he
Mhm.
dies. He dies and he withers away into like pixie dust or something. And the girl is crying. And the Sailor Moon, Mercury, and Mars. It was only the three of them at this point in the story. They're just witnessing. They're just standing there witnessing this helpless as the girl cries, and that's how the episode ends. And
It's very
I thought about that the entire day. It was another big moment that just got me. Just I it. I'm speechless. I'm thinking about it now. I'm speechless. It is moments like that that like got me hooked on the show.
It's it's funny. Mr. Tickle Trunk has a super chat there.
Okay. So I'm gonna have to say this for like George Takei. Kids these days are so coddled. Back in my day, we watched the never-ending story. We got to see a horse drown in mud. Oh my, and died from sadness. Okay, there you go.
I mean, but
thank you for
he's
that.
He's right, because I grew up with was it The Last Unicorn? I grew up with Cock-a-Doodle Doo. I grew up with
Rockadoodle
Doo. Excuse me. All Dogs Go to Heaven. I grew up with
American Tail.
American Tail. Yes.
I am super duper sensitive to like being separated from family and parents because of that movie. Seeing that movie as a 3-year-old.
I mean, and then we grew up with like movies like Thumbelina. We grew up with
Land Before Time. I learned that movie. I learned about
how
death.
about Brave Little Toaster? I mean,
Brave Little Toaster. Yeah,
that's a pretty dark movie. What else? It's another one. Oh gosh, I'm there.
Secret of NIM, National Institute of Mental Health.
Oh yeah, I actually read the book when I was before I became a teenager.
It's a really good movie. I didn't see it as a kid. I actually first watched Secret of NIM. I saw the box at the video store because I used to go to the cartoons, the animated section all the time. My very first thing I ever saw anime wise was a VHS called Unico, which is about a little baby unicorn that goes around. The goddess of wind takes him away from the gods because the gods are jealous of him and everything. And it's an episodic adventure based off of a Tezuka original Tezuka story. Tezuka being the godfather of manga in general. He created Astro Boy, Kimba the Lion. I think I might be wrong there.
No, Kimba the Lion. Yeah.
And a whole bunch of other stuff that almost every animator has referenced, and it's very Disney looking. All of his early stuff was very Disney looking, but he did make some dark shit too. I read a few of his 70s manga that he did that was you would be surprised it was him that did it. Like it was insanely dark. Like I don't even want to go into it, but yeah.
And it's funny because I grew up with Final Fantasy. I grew up with Sailor Moon. I grew up with all of these other influences in my life, and it's just interesting seeing stories today being made. And I'm like, I literally watched Land Before Time and cried over the mother. I watched Bambi. Bambi is really, Bambi is also kind of dark in its own way for a Disney movie, and it's like.
And this was 1942.
How about The Fox and the Hound?
Yeah,
The Fox and the Hound is a very dark-ish movie.
I never finished The Fox and the Hound. I mean, I know what it's about, but I never finished that one.
It's there's. And you watch these movies over and over again, even as a kid, and none of this stuff. I mean, it's still heartbreaking, but it doesn't bother you in the sense of you need to go see a therapist over. It's just like we were able to understand life lessons from the story, and they're good life lessons. It's realistic, letting us know that we can still have an imagination and be innocent children, but knowing that the world is an ugly and scary place, and we need to protect ourselves.
Yeah, and it just gives us insight to
what, and gives us resilience to be able to fight against it.
Exactly, and it's compelling, and it makes as a kid, like I used to take those things. I never took those things for. Once I saw it, I never really took it for granted. Like I realized that I mean, like we're. I don't even know what I'm talking about. All right, Diesel for $5. I'm not gonna do George Takei. That's purely Mr. Tickle Trunk. So I agree with what Mr. Tickle. I'll do a Shatner. I agree with what Mr. Tickle Trunk said. We also had to watch our beloved hero and father figure, Optimus Prime, die in a very emotional scene. So yeah, I
Mhm.
Transformers the movie. That's a great movie too. That scene, holy crap! Like Optimus Prime. Like I was too young. 86. I was a baby. I was a toddler. But people who were a few friends of mine who were like who were kids in the mid 80s, like everybody, all the kids were crying in the theater. I from what I heard after seeing that in the theater. So
Mhm.
it's insane. It's insane when you think about it. But like they back then, and this is why I like when people say how good new stuff is now. I'm always like, I've seen better. I've seen better. I've seen more compelling stuff.
I've seen
They took
better.
risks back then. They writers, directors. They took risks back then, even with stuff that was deemed child friendly. Like they wanted to teach kids, about life.
Well, even like what is it? The Rescuers movie. Some of that is
That's another good movie. I
that's
love The
another good
Rescuers.
movie. It has dark qualities to it, but it
Like girl gets kidnapped by what was it? That was an aunt or something in
yes.
Louisiana, if I remember correctly.
Yep. Yep. I think
Yeah, and
I think so.
they rescue her.
The Rescuers, and there's so many good child movies, and it's just you know I don't like what Joker Strong says Obi-Wan counts, right? I mean, in a way, yeah, because it's Star Wars, and we saw Spock die. I mean, we all grew up with
In the
Spock
wrath of
dying.
Khan.
In the
Yeah,
Wrath of Khan. I mean, that
I
was some dark stuff. I mean,
Wrath of Khan. So
I remember watching those movies over and over and over again before I even was a preteen. And
Yeah.
it's like,
So like when I was a kid, I first saw Wrath of Khan when I was 11, and I mean I understood what was going on, but after after I'm much older now. I after having quite a bit more life experience, especially dealing with loss. Uh, every time I watch Wrath of Khan now, I always shed tears. Like just me thinking about it makes me
right,
is I'm fighting off shedding tears right now because the stellar acting of Nimoy during the scene, but even more so when Shatner is giving the eulogy, and the way Shatner reacts to the death is very realistic because I've reacted that way myself to the death of my father. It was complete pure shock. And then him fighting off. I said the eulogy for my father during his memorial service,
okay,
and I
yeah,
had a very similar thing where I was trying to fight back tears as I was reading it. And Kirk has that same moment where he's like, of all the souls I've encountered in my travels, his was the most, and he's fighting it human, and then that was it. And I had a similar moment when I was giving my father's eulogy. So, but yeah, so every time I watch that now, gold, it's pure gold. So
it's yeah.
I don't want to. I'm not trying to tug your heartstrings. I'm just saying.
No. I mean, I think what you're trying to say is that there's so many significant moments in pop culture or in entertainment that imprinted on our hearts that it's not their fantasy, their fiction, but they have that human experience element that can be that we can relate to.
Yes.
And that is that is a gift that storytellers can give to humanity, where it's very relatable experiences. I mean, I have no I have no real life reality to compare to Tara Branford in Final Fantasy VI, but I can relate to her and some of her confidence struggles a lot.
Yeah.
I can understand being scared. I can understand feeling messed up sometimes, but I can relate to that character. I don't need to imprint myself on that
And we
character,
don't
but
and
I can relate to that
we
character.
don't have to look like that character either.
No,
Like that.
no.
So I
I can
mean, like,
relate to
and that,
Sailor I can relate to Sailor Moon, like I just said. Like she had a cat, Luna. I had a cat, and they were best friends, and we were best friends. And she had her struggles too, and it's kind of like I can
that
relate to those struggles.
there's so many ways you can relate to a story. There's so many ways you can get invested. If you find yourself invested, whether it's you have something in common with the character, or you've or you just enjoy it, or you just enjoy it for the sake of it, just the humor, the action, you know, everything. And it's just where am I going with this? Where am I going with this? Where am I going with where am I going with this? Yeah, like I really wish it seems maybe it's current writers, and as far as I'm concerned, they can stay on strike indefinitely, because I mean for so many years now, I think it's going to be 7 or 8 years. They've been mostly delivering either complete garbage or stuff that is subpar. And because the bar is so low now, like even stuff that even might be considered mediocre, 2 to 3 decades ago, is now considered good. I mean, look no further, and if you guys disagree with me, that's fine. But look no further than Picard season 3, which got all this praise. And then I watched it because it got all this praise. Watch it with Steve, and I mean, it was better, but the bar is so low. The bar is just so low. It's not what I like. That's not the stuff that I like, and it's not what made Star Trek stand the test of time. And Alex is in the chat. He was part of. He was watching it with us. A whole bunch of people watched it. Pips watched it. Prophet watched it. I even got Salty and Daniel to watch it too. Gray watched it, all because I wanted to cover it. And we all felt this. We all felt the same way. I started to sour on it. Even Gray started to sour on it. And Gray's the most positive out of all of us. And I'm just like, I tried. I still keep, even though I haven't watched the new Strange New World series. Did you hear what they're doing with Strange New Worlds? First, they have a crossover episode between Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds. So they got the Dennis Quaid's son, who was the voice actor for the nerdy, the one that gets trashed on in Lower Decks. Well, they make an appearance in Strange New Worlds. I tried watching it,
Mhm.
and this series is written by freaking children, and I hate to quote the critical drinker, but he's spot on when he says current stuff is written by children, because I am watching Strange New Worlds, and the character, like they recasted a lot of the original characters. So hearing Uhura, like the character Boimler, who's from Lower Decks, is trying to start a conversation with Uhura, and Uhura's just like, "Oh, you're weird. What are you saying? Why are you acting weird to me?" I'm like, I could never imagine Nichelle Nichols saying that to someone.
Well,
I could only imagine Nichelle Nichols asking him questions like, "Oh, where are you from?" or "What's it like being you?" Being thoughtful, and which was what how Star Trek characters used to be written. Now they're written like their characters are written like their children,
well,
and unrelatable.
it's interesting because I will as somebody who is in the millennial generation. Um, I always hear it all the time, like, well, it's the millennial generation, they're coddled or whatever, and I'm like, not from my experience, and I know plenty of millennials who didn't who were not coddled either. I think it has a lot to do with the bubbles of where entertainment is from, so they speak from um their own particular small experiences, and a lot of these writers are their only experience is LA or San Francisco or New York City
Or Portland.
or Portland or Miami or whatever. Those are their only experiences that they have. They don't go out and they speak to other people or experience the world in terms of talking to people and actually having a human conversation. I mean, you and me were around the same age. We literally just talked about dark children's movies. So we certainly
Yeah.
weren't coddled when we were growing up for our respective generation. So it's kind of like, where's this rhetoric coming from? Oh, it's just because it's very small minded in those locations. When you go out into the world, it's not everywhere you're going to find that. I mean, um, I don't think it's necessarily specific to a generation. I think it's just specific to the fact that Hollywood has its own bubble and they only want to talk and interact with their own bubble. So now they're creating these stories today as well as TV and movies that are talking to that same bubble. It doesn't matter what kind of generation you're from. They're just making movies for themselves or stories for themselves. So it's just very fascinating to watch because I'm again we grew up with I grew up with Page Master. That's a pretty dark movie too, and it's kind of like
Yeah.
that that was made for our generation. So as children, so it's kind of like we grew up with a bunch of dark stuff that we weren't coddled on. So I don't know where this is coming from. Now, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of children, a lot of people grew up with silver spoons in their mouths. A lot of them have legacies, so they grew up with having people already in family members who were in Hollywood and entertainment for decades. I mean, if you look at it this way, Michael Douglas and Kirk Douglas, that's a good example. But I'm not saying he's coddled. I'm just saying that there's multiple generations now in Hollywood that people need to realize,
Oh
and that
yeah.
there's a lot of nepotism.
Yes.
That's a problem too. So not
Yeah.
it's not
It's
based
not
on
what I.
merit.
It's not what you know. It's who you know in Hollywood.
Exactly.
I mean, look. I mean, look who ruined Willow. You know who was the head writer for Willow? John Kasdan. You know who his father is? Lawrence Kasdan. You know what Lawrence Kasdan wrote? He wrote the screenplay for Empire, Jedi, and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he's directed several movies. Big Chill. Um, I forget what else he's done, but he's done a whole lot. And John Kasdan single handedly ruined Solo and Willow. I mean,
Yeah.
he made Lando a pot a pot pan person. I'm
Oh
not gonna.
God, don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, yeah, and then he had Phoebe Waller Bridge,
Oh,
who's another destroyer of.
a Kathleen Kennedy insert, yeah, self insert, yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so
it's interesting, dichotomy that we all grew up with this stuff. We all grew up with, um, I mean, there's a, I have to share this with you. Actually, um, speaking about classics, there was a great thread that I came across on my feed a while ago, and I'm actually gonna see if I can share it here. Hold on, I gotta share screen. Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't need to share audio, but here it is. So you have it shared.
yeah,
There was a great thread that I wanted to bookmark because it says that experimental era of early 2000s animated movies about personal growth framed around finding this legendary thing produced so many beautiful underrated films that deserve more love. And I agree. There's Treasure Planet,
Titan
um,
AE.
Titan AE, Atlantis, and El Dorado. And then there are a couple other hints too. The other 2000s 2D. I agree. Lilo and Stitch, Brother Bear, um, uh, gosh,
Tarzan,
Tarzan. Thank you. Spirits, Stallion and the Cimarron. There's Sinbad. There's
Prince of Egypt.
Prince of Egypt. Thank you.
I've not
Everything.
seen any of these movies. Well, Titan AE I saw years later, but
But I mean, people, Camelot, The Quest for Camelot. There's like so many things.
Anastasia.
Anastasia. There's so many Emperor's New Groove. There's so
Yeah,
many children's movies here that you know. The Iron Giant is a great
that's
movie.
a great. Now I did see that. That's a great movie.
I mean, you're talking about great movies that we all grew up with. I forget what movie this is. I've seen this character before, and I forget what movie this is. I'm sure
I don't.
chat will tell me.
I don't know. I
Chat, can
don't
you tell
know.
me? Because distinctly remember this particular character, but I don't remember the movie. But there's so many scenes and so many movies that were made back in the 90s and early 2000s of like early children's movies. And it's just amazing how that shaped us as far as our generation is concerned.
Yeah.
But just they were dark movies. They had dark situations, but they also had great moral and life lessons
Yeah, it it it
for
it,
us.
it taught us something, and same with the early Star Trek. There were episodes that were like that didn't quite resolve, made you think. I mean, episodes like The Outcast, which I know
That's
was
yes,
very relevant.
Osmosis Jones. Thank you. I remembered that villain because I'm like, oh my gosh, I
I,
remember that villain, but I don't remember the name of the villain.
I heard the name. I heard the name Osmosis Jones. I don't think I've ever. Yeah, I haven't
See
seen that
see,
one
one of
either.
these I wanna do, like, an actual I wanna do I would love to do a Discord watch of all of these types of movies, because I think people would love them because they're great storytelling. It's not just for children, I think adults could appreciate them too. There's really good humor in them, but it's not MCU levels of humor, it's appropriately placed humor, so to speak.
You want? Oh, I was a few years ago. I think it was 2014. I was watching a whole bunch of. I haven't watched any animated films for a long time, so I watched a whole bunch
Mhm.
of Disney movies. I know what movie's really dark. Disney Pinocchio.
Oh, yeah,
That's a
Pinocchio is
that's a dark movie. That
don't
there's child trafficking in that movie.
Yes.
I had the when I saw that, I got the heebie-jeebies for like a week for a day.
Mhm.
I was like, whoa. I was trying to tell people at work, and they're like, eh. They're like, what? What are you saying? Oh, that part? Oh, I don't remember that. But like all the kids are lured to a ship, and they're like, oh, there's candy, there's fun, there's games, and all the kids transform into jackasses, and then they get shipped into containers, and they're taken away forever. And Pinocchio was lucky to get the hell out of there when he did.
It's
I was like, whoa,
even even
whoa,
even Dumb
whoa.
even Dumbo is pretty dark. I mean, that's
The only thing I remember from Dumbo, and because Disney I hate Disney for this, they decided to cut out the those crows,
mm,
because the crows, are, based off of people with a different tone.
oh, gotcha. Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm just like, well, so what? So what?
So
Sensitivity. Mm.
so
Uh,
I have two more things to share with everybody. So let's see here. I am going to I like how you have to do all of these steps to do things. Let's see here. That So, speaking of Final Fantasy, there is Final Fantasy 22nd anniversary of Final Fantasy X, and they'll be streaming the traditional Japanese theatrical new Kabuki Final Fantasy X in 19 countries and regions until October 31st. And you can purchase your tickets at Square Enix, of course. The show is performed in Japanese with English subtitles, so you can see that, which I think is neat for them to do.
so this is a concert.
I'm assuming, yeah, it's probably a concert. Yep.
I was like, are they making a Final Fantasy X movie? Like, or what's going
No,
on here?
no. This artwork actually looks really, really good.
Yes,
How
it
they
does.
It looks really, really good.
What
And
was the?
then
I forget. What's the name of these two characters? I forget. That's how
Titus and Yuna.
Titus and Yuna. Okay.
Hmm.
Oh, I keep getting Titus mixed up with Zidane from Nine. I keep getting those two names mixed up.
And then something else that's coming out that I saw that came across my feed that I was interested in that I might actually there's not coming up. Okay, that I might actually feel like throwing some buckaroos in. But there's this And the Sailor Moon news, which I follow,
Is that the
Eternal.
scepter? That's the scepter she gets in season 2, if I remember correctly.
No, this is Eternal. This is for late. This is later in the show. So let me see the Proplica. So Proplica means basically this is from the Sailor Moon Cosmos. So this is
Okay.
later. This is later in the series. The Proplica is 1-to-1, meaning it's life size. So
Oh,
yes, it is life. It's a life size wand.
so how much is that?
It's going to be. Hold on. You can buy there. It's about $230 or something like that. Yeah, 200. Price in the U.S. is $230 retail. Some shops may have cheaper pre-order price, but this is the Proplica. So you get
What?
you get your stand and everything else, but it's going to be 1-to-1, meaning it's life size, and it will have multiple features to it. It's not just it's not just a shiny object. Like it will have glowing, it will glow and everything else. It's going to have some unique qualities to it. So yeah, this is what's coming out. It's going to be Japan release in 2024 in January. International release is March, April in 2024. So yeah, it actually looks really, really cool. I mean, that's a lot of detail right there.
That's a lot of money right there.
I know, but I don't know. I
Like
think
I mean I love to, I would love to, there might be certain franchises I might do something like that for, but
so.
I don't know, it's just
This is in celebration of the Sailor Moon Cosmos movie that came out. So yeah,
Cosmos. Is that based off of the fourth series Supers,
I
Sailor
think
Moon Supers,
I think Sailor Moon Supers. Yes.
with the Dark Circus clan, I think, the Queen Nehelenia and Zirconia and all
Yep.
those guys.
So there's been like a movie. There's a movie that's being released too. That's kind of it's kind of like a remade version of it, but based on the manga version. And
Yeah,
this is what the Proplica is. I do not um have it, but this is her. This is Sailor Moon. I think this is what this is based off of. Let me see. I gotta go back. So I think this is what this is based off of.
with the wings. Okay,
With the,
I thought she didn't get that till, or no, maybe I thought she didn't get that till the very end. I guess not.
I don't know. I'm trying to keep up with all the latest ones because I grew up with Sailor Moon, the original Sailor Moon Crystal. Um,
Have you seen all the original seasons? Like, because I know some of the seasons didn't come out in the U.S. for a
I
while.
think
Like Sailor Stars, the final season
I
wasn't out.
I did not see Sailor Stars. No, I wasn't able. I think a lot of the seasons at that time were either not shown on Cartoon Network because it was Cartoon Network that they were shown on.
Yeah, so I think they had season 2, they had season 3. Season 3 is, I think they bring in the outer senshi, so
You have
you have the love couple,
Neptune,
Neptune and
Uranus,
Uranus
and Pluto.
and then a little girl ends up being like a ticking time bomb. That's Sailor Saturn.
Yeah.
And then the 5th season, or the final season, they come back, but you also have this new team from another galaxy or something, from another solar system, and they're called the Sailor Starlights, and they're basically like a rock band type of deal. And then of course the final enemy of Sailor Moon is the most powerful Sailor Scout in the galaxy, Sailor Galaxia.
Yep, Galaxia.
And it gets we find out that she is manipulated by the by the entity, by the entity that is responsible for all the evil in the universe. So so there was always every season had a human villain, and then there was this super dimensional entity that was kind of manipulating things. So in the first season, it was Metalia manipulating Beryl. In season 2, it was Wise Man manipulating Prince Diamond and the the Dark Moon clan. Season 3, it was Pharaoh 90 manipulating Professor Tomo with his evil shiny glasses in the dark, and the witches 9 or whatever they were, and
Yep.
his assistant. Season 3, I think, is my favorite of the season. Sailor Moon S, I think, it was the best season because it really
That's the
moved.
one
It
that's
really
being
it did
released.
a lot of world building, and it really like moved the story forward in my opinion,
That's
even more
that's
so than Sailor Moon R, the second season.
that's the one that's being recently released on DVD, on Blu-ray. So go check that out. But yeah, I know I'm re-catching up on everything because I definitely grew up with season 1 and 2. I think I grew up with season 3, but I don't know if I saw 4 or 5 or any others after that. I think at that point I was probably in high school when the English dubs came out or something like that. Um, or was shown on American television, like either probably Cartoon Network, or it wasn't shown at all. So it's kind of one of those things where I missed out on those opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, I'm that's as much as watching on stream, watching streaming, as far as not having physical media, that's the one thing that definitely help you open access to other things that you either missed out or you're seeing for the first time. So that's what's good. And if you see it on streaming and you like it, make sure you get the DVD. So I
I
highly
agree.
recommend getting the.
I have to get the Blu-rays. Like I have a whole bunch. I have a whole shelf of anime right where my hand is right now, and
I
it's
love
those.
it. See, one of the things I want to get on Blu-ray, I want to get Gundam Wing. I like that show because I grew up with that. I do want to get. I want to get Digimon. I like Digimon a lot. I figured, for me, I felt that Digimon, as far as the story and the show was concerned, was far richer and darker and had more layers than Pokemon. I mean, Pokemon had its dark moments, but it definitely was a little bit more children oriented. Um, I thought Digimon had a better storyline, but
Oh, I
I
totally
like
agree with that.
I like both for what they are. It's just I feel that Digimon had more of a story there than anything else.
I really enjoyed seeing the kids bond with the Digimon. The Digimon were their own characters. They were very loyal to them. They protected them. But
Gatomon was my favorite.
yeah, and there was a love. There was a bond of love between the Digimon and the children. And I thought that meant something. And I love seeing the Digimon. Um, I was in high school. I was a freshman in
Digimon
high
had a lot
school.
of dark moments. Oh my
Oh
goodness.
yeah, I remember. I got so into it because of those dark moments. And I just loved how I loved how they kept evolving throughout the show. Like the one thing I was disappointed with the first season of Digimon Adventure, which is the Japanese name, because there's a lot of different Digimon shows that are in their own little continuity. Um,
Mhm.
but the first season of Digimon Adventure, like I was disappointed that they didn't all warp Digivolve into their mega forms. It was only Ty and Matt's Digimon that were able to do that. But so when they got to the final arc with the Dark Masters, who were basically 4 Mega Digimon that basically took over the digital world, I was just like, how are they going to beat them? Like they got their butts kicked the first thing. So it was fun. It was fun being on that journey with them, and then they go back to Earth in the earlier arc with Vandemon or Myotismon. If you've seen it, I've seen both the Japanese and the American versions. They've changed the names for a few of the characters, but like
Mm.
when they go back to the Earth arc was great. Like the Earth arc was probably the longest arc, and it had the most. The stakes were. I think the stakes were at their highest, even more
Oh
so
yeah.
than the final Dark Masters arc. But I really enjoyed it. I watched it all the way through. I was in high school. I was 15. I was 15 coming home from school watching this. I wasn't watching Power Rangers at that point. Power Rangers ended for me with Power Rangers in Space because it wrapped up the story, in my opinion. It wrapped up the whole Zordon arc. It's like Zordon dies, and all the villains, all the classic villains, Rita is Lord Zed, the machines from Zeo, Divatox from Turbo, and whoever I forgot, Astronema from In Space. It pretty much ended all the arcs. So when they kept making more Power Rangers, I was like, I'm not gonna watch it
Right.
again.
It kind
So
of diminishes its charm in a way
yes,
when they do stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, I hear you because I liked Digimon season 1 and 2, where season 1 was the chosen ones, the chosen children. Um,
yeah.
and then the season 2, when it was kind of like the next, I wouldn't say the next generation, but another couple years younger, they got grew up, and then there was another set of children. And it's I loved those seasons as much as, I didn't really care for some of the newer kids. I loved those seasons because it was, first of all, there was the continuity of it all.
Yeah.
The chosen ones were still, they're still important. And it's, I don't know, I have a thing where it's like, if certain children are chosen ones to do a task, like they were the selected ones to do these things, they were the digidestined. That was the term.
That was the American. That was in the American version. Yeah.
The American version, they were called the digidestined.
Yes.
I'm like, you would think that the digidestined at some point, I mean, it's kind of like Han, Luke, and Leia kind of thing. Like, you need to kind of keep them around. Like, they are the digidestined, and they're kind of the reason why this exists. So, I don't want, I know you don't want them to take away from newer characters, newer storylines, but I feel like there still needs to be respect there. So it's always nice to see them come back a little bit to kind of be,
Yeah,
hey,
and they did
we're,
come back. They
yeah.
came back in. They came back a few years ago. Digimon Adventure Try. I mean, they
Mm.
were. I mean, they weren't adults, even though this is years later. They were 18, and they were already facing, the fact that they're becoming adults, and they're going they're starting to go their separate ways. And I'll be honest, that was a very disappointing. Um, that was very disappointing because I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't follow the story, and it got boring at points. And I felt like, and I
A
watched
lot of
all of
people
it.
didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah, and then they made a follow up to it because it felt like it didn't conclude anything. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And then they made a follow up. I didn't even bother watching it. So as far as I'm concerned, there's only the two original seasons, and apparently they're remaking it now. They're remaking Digimon Adventure.
Yeah, I don't.
I haven't watched it yet.
I'm like, I love the original voice actors of those shows, and it's. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but it's, maybe first. I always call it first impression bias, or whatever. Call it what it is, but that that first season, like, that's what hooked me on Digimon. I loved it. I even I was, because I was so young, I was so interested in creating short story. I created my own short stories, and I created my own characters of different, stories, and I created my own Digimon. So it's kind of like, yeah, and it was a dragon based Digimon. So I
Do
created.
you remember the name? Did you name it?
I'll have to. I think I still have my notebook somewhere that I even like drew. Like, I actually drew the character, and I created what skills the character had. I think it was, as lame as I think it sounds, but it's probably Dramon. But I don't know if it was really that. I have to look at the notebook. But yeah, I created, it was a dragon based Digimon because I love dragons because of Pokemon's Dratini, Dragonair, and Dragonite. But I wanted to bring a dragon to Digimon, so I created a Digimon character. I
Wow.
was I was just I was that was me. I would create characters. Now, did I finish a lot of these stories and character development stuff? No, because I was a kid, and I didn't have the time because I was in private Catholic school, and I had a ton of homework, and it's not like I had the luxury all the time. But and I didn't grow up with computers at school. I actually had to use notebooks and textbooks. So,
Mm-hmm. it's that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. That's pretty cool.
I
You have
actually
to find
have
it. I need to know now. I need to know now.
I have it in my closet, but it will take me a bit, like in my bedroom closet. It will take me a bit to find it. Um, I mean, wrote so many stories and so many characters. I mean, they're not complete, but I even have drawings that I made of not just not Digimon, but of other characters that I created.
Hmm.
So
Oh
I was
wow.
able to draw a long time ago. Now I can't draw anymore because it's, so many years later, you kind of get out of it.
Well, Max, thank you so much for sharing that. That was cool. Thanks for doing this stream. This has been a real blast. So I know it's getting late. I know it's like midnight by you. So um,
Thankfully, I
let's.
work from home tomorrow, so it's all
Oh, that's
good.
good. Okay, that's good.
I can.
So
My commute is literally 5 steps.
yeah, for me, I have to drive a good 14, 15 miles
Oh
tomorrow.
gosh.
So
Okay.
yeah. So so once again, yeah, thank you for that. Anything you want to plug or promote or
I don't have anything to plug or promote, but definitely there was definitely several people in this chat that I could say highlights um following. There's Hypnotic, there's Diesel is part of the Common Nerd channel, so check out the Common Nerd channel. Who else was in the chat? Dempsey, make sure you follow him for original music. And then they have High King Fionor, who is in the chat here. He is going to be releasing his first video on his channel quite soon. So make sure you follow him, so you and hit that notification bell, so you are so you are there for his first video. So I'm excited for that. So
oh I,
but yes, you can find me. Of course, you can see down below. I have, you can find me Magitech Mags. I am Magitech Mags in all these locations: YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, Kick, and Twitter. I don't know when I'll be coming back to game streams. I have some ideas in the pipeline that I'm working on, and I am working on a new Discord as we speak. So I'm using that as a springboard to opening up to newer and better possibilities. And hopefully I can start some, because I had a poll a couple of weeks ago. Hopefully I can start some uh, movie watch time in Discord. I don't think I'm going to do like a streaming and watching at the same time. It's going to be more like a relaxing evening in Discord where people can just talk and chat afterwards. But I wanted to show movies like we were talking about, the early 2000s and late 90s type movies, where there's
yeah.
good beloved, not just cartoon movies, but also just good movies that we don't talk about as often. I mean, we talk about them, but it's not. We talk about Star Trek and Star Wars all the time. I love those movies, but let's talk about Page Master. Let's talk about some other movies that are out there that have impacted culture as a whole too. And then but yeah, but you can find me, and you can find me around in the live chats. I mod everywhere pretty much. You can find me on Friday Night Royal Rumble on Legion Games channel on Friday nights, and you can find me on Loki's late night show, late nights on Friday sometimes. And I say sometimes because I can't make it to all of these shows at once, but I am part of those shows. Um, you can find me sometimes on Sunday Culture Casino's Sunday late night show. You can find me on Midnight's Edge Toxic Femininity show on Mondays. And you can find me hanging out with the Comics Division guys over on his channel on Mondays or Thursdays. So I am everywhere. And Nerdporeal, thank you for inviting me on. I love these types of talks. Of course, it's very chill, and it's a great nerd discussion. So
Oh well, thanks. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all that. So this is the thumbnail for my next video that I'm currently editing right now. So I am
oh,
trying to. I have been running my mouth recommending this epic show that came out in started in the late 80s and worked its way up to the early 90s. It's basically a space opera. So if you're looking for a good space opera that isn't, Star Trek, Star Wars, Babylon 5, this is, in my opinion, the best space opera that came out of Japan. And I'm even comparing this to, and there's, what else do we have from Japan? You had Gundam, you had Space Battleship Yamato, you had Macross. I think this is probably one of the best, most epic shows of all time, and it's based off of a book series. It feels like you're watching a war epic, even though it happens to take place in space. It's also a period piece. There's a lot of there's a lot of death. There's a lot of, these are young men on this thumbnail who have to step up and take on the mantleship of leadership in order to end a war that's been going on for 150 years. Because the older generations just don't give a shit. So that's basically what this show is about. And the two protagonists are on the right of the screen, and they're both on the different sides of the war. One being an empire, a monarchical empire, not nearly as corrupt, but it's going through its own state of decay. And then you have the other side, the alliance, which is more of a democratic Republican system, with run by a council. There's propaganda, there's corruption, and there's a lot of political intrigue in this. So it's not just a war epic, it's also, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of commentary about especially modern day politics of the 80s and 90s. So this is definitely something. It's a 110 episode OVA. There's a 52 episode guidance show that's a backstory to the OVA, and then there's a few movies. And that's just this. Then they're also remaking it too. So there's so many remakes going on, and this is just something I definitely would recommend. And I'm making the video to basically show off. And of course, there's Prophet the Dragon right there saying, "Oh, shut up about this, Brian," because I've been, like I said, I've been running my mouth about this for weeks now. So,
hey, Prophet.
So yeah,
okay.
so that's the video I'm working on right now.
Okay.
I'm actually doing a whole bunch of streams the next couple of days. Tomorrow I'm going to be on Angry Canadians. We're going to be talking about the music of Super Mario Brothers 1 through 3.
Awesome, that sounds great.
Yeah, tomorrow night 7 p.m. Central. So definitely tune in to Angry Canadians channel. And on Saturday in the afternoon, I'm going to be on Nerdy Neo's channel, formerly known as Boba Fett. He's going to be streaming. He started his channel, and he's going to bring me on to talk about video games and best moments and everything. So definitely tune into him too. So Nerdy Neo and Angry Canadian.
Okay.
And so Prophet is shoveling shit right now.
Hey, hopefully you don't have a craptastic day.
I'll say this: he put up a short of a shit conveyor, and I think the other day he compared the shit conveyor to bad entertainment. I was like, dude, no, that's not fair to the shit conveyor.
No, at least the shit is organic.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, once again, everybody, thanks for being here. Smash the like button if you haven't, and before you go, leave a comment. It helps with the algorithm. I have to keep asking. So, but other than that, everybody, take care, have a good night, and stay Nerdporeal.
Bye.